Welcome back to Media Talks TV. I'm Tony J. And I just want to say happy New Year's Eve. I know some of y'all are getting prepared for the New Year's. And I guess for me, uh, I wanted to close out 2025 by really highlighting and basically reflecting on what I've learned from this year. Now, you could ask yourself, this has been a wild year, actually. And it's opened my mind up to a lot of things that I've had to reflect on as an adult. And there are about five things that I have really learned about 2025 because one of the things I've learned is you have to be adaptable. This year, I think this year is considered the year of the snake, which means it's about shedding old beliefs and old, I guess, old mindsets. And I guess for me, one of the things that sticks out in 2025 is the idea of adaptability. And considering I'm the age that I am, this entire generation has had to deal with a lot of black swan events. I've had to deal with a lot of black swan events. So tragedies and failures, they they really come easy to me because I'm used to them. And also learning to adjust to new realities is something that even to this day I have a challenge with, but I'm learning and I'm growing to become more adaptable to changing circumstances, whether it be in the economy, whether it be in the media, and whether it be with me as I age. Um, Learning how to be adaptable and learning how to embrace adaptability is the most important thing that 2025 has taught me, because with the rise of AI, I've had to learn how to work with new technology. But as I've said again, we're the generation of constant adaptability. If you're a millennial and you've had to deal with the issue of learning to adapt to different situations, then you're just as tough and as strong as the next person, because whatever is thrown in our way, we're able to adjust to it. And I think with 9/11, we learned to adjust to different things. You can no longer be protected from a constantly changing world. We've dealt with black swan events I have dealt with black swan events. What I mean by a black swan event is an unlikely occurrence that comes once in a lifetime. 9/11 was once in a lifetime. COVID-19 was once in a lifetime events. But then there's the events that we deal with on a daily basis, dealing with school shootings, dealing with not being able to feel safe in public spaces, and then those public spaces that you think are safe are not really safe. Learn how to keep your head on a swivel, being that I'm from Baltimore. Learning not to be out too late at night, because late at night, that's when things happen. So I've constantly had to live with this idea of being paranoid, but also understanding that shit happens and things happen for a reason. And it's just your attitude and how you respond to them. And that's something that I have had to grapple with in this decade, is learning how to be adaptable, learning how to let go of certain things, that attitudes and belief systems that I once had carried with me for years. Older people have a sense of stubbornness because they don't know how to grapple with new realities, because they never learned how to deal with them when they were our age. But we're getting a head start learning how to deal with black swan events and thinking. And one of the things that is the most tragic thing of that previous generation, the older generation, if you're 70 and up, is this thing about complacency, that we thought that well, they thought that things were going to stay the same and that the system wasn't going to really change, and it did. And when you're growing up in the 70s and the 80s and early 90s, you think that things are going to be exactly the way it is. They didn't have the blueprint for anything. But we have the blueprint and are constantly tweaking it every time. Which leads me to my next thing that I've learned in 2025, which is transformation. Transformation is important because without transformation, there is no growth. And like I said, this is the year of the snake, and snakes are known for shedding skin. And when they shed that skin, they're peeling back layers of what they once were, transforming themselves into something new. Butterflies grow inside a cocoon. Well, caterpillars, excuse me. Caterpillars grow inside a cocoon and transform themselves into butterflies. Being transformative and having a transformative mindset is also another key to survival. Learning how to change old systems and dismantle old systems and recreate new systems. How we think about work, how we think about how we view our lives around money and success, how we view success, it's important to have a transformative mindset to become something more. Because if you don't transform, you don't grow. And then if you don't grow, you stay stagnant. And that's what I've learned. And that's something that I'm focusing on trying to change in 2026 is to become more transformative and take risk and think outside the box and not get attached or not have my ego attached to this idea of what success looks like through the eyes of social media or through the eyes of television or what I see when I'm scrolling up Instagram. Most important thing is to change, not to stay the same, not to hang around the same types of people with the same types of mindsets. And that's most important for me when I think about growth and when I think about transformation. There are belief systems that were passed down to me that I had to let go of if I was ever going to grow. And, you know, being the meditative person that I am, I've learned that you can't just rest on your laurels. And I've done a lot of that in the past, thinking that it would get me by, and it didn't. I've achieved a lot, but that achievement is not enough to say I'm done. So that's why we have to keep constantly redefining ourselves year after year after year. The year before I said I wanted to start a business. I'm still on the track of starting a business. I wanted to start a media company. I'm still on the track of starting my own media company, but I have to focus on learning the ins and outs of running a media company. I have to learn the ins and outs of market research, learning the ins and outs on how to create an app, how to create a website, the whole 9 yards. So every time that I come to this roadblock, I know I can't constantly give up when I hit a roadblock. And that leads me to the third one, being self taught, autodidacticism. And what do I mean when I say autodidacticism? What I mean when I say that word, autodidactic, what does that mean? It means self taught. It means that I have to take the initiative to learn new things on my own without the guidance of a mentor or a teacher. And in this day and age, we depend so much on somebody else giving us permission to do things. I, as a young man, was raised to wait your turn or be patient or wait until somebody gives it to me instead of going out and getting it on my own. It's something that was passed down to me as a child. And I cling to that in hopes Well, I clung to that mindset in hopes that things would happen for me and not to me. So what I learned is that I got to go out and get it. I can't wait for nobody else to give it to me, which means that I have to have a constant thirst for learning everything that I can about new technology. Goes back to this thing about AI. This year, I've had to teach myself Chat GPT. I've had to learn about Sora AI. I've had to learn about these technologies because these technologies are going to transform the world. And I have to start messing with them and tinkering it with them in order to understand how these things work. If you're not teaching your kids about AI, if you're not teaching your children about the potential benefits of using and leveraging these AI tools, and if you're not engaging with these new AI tools and you're scared of them, then you're going to be in for a rude awakening later down the line by the end of this decade because these technologies are changing the world and we don't know what's going to happen. Everything is a question mark right now. It's like we've been thrown into the unknown and now we have to figure shit out on our own. Nobody's going to help us. So you have to be the type of person as you get older to learn new things. Even if you don't like them, it depends on your survival in order to learn new skills. Upskilling is very important. Learning new technology is very important. You might need to go back to university, but you also might need a trade. And that's something that I learned this year that sometimes having the best of both worlds is more important than having nothing at all. So being autodidactic is important for people's survival. And I remember when I was younger, when I got my first computer, learning how the internet worked, learning what CD-ROM was, learning Windows XP. I had to learn that technology on my own, and then I had to figure out the inner components of a computer and how they work, how they come together. What's a CPU? What's a DDR5? What's a RAM chip? What's cache data? These things I had to learn on my own. Nobody taught me these things. The only thing my teachers taught me about a computer is that, oh, do you know the difference between a monitor and a hard drive? And what's the difference between a computer and a computer monitor? And it goes back to that 25 years. That was 27 years ago. 27 years ago. Most people 65 and up don't know how the inner components of a computer work. And it's a very sad thing. And with the baby boomer generation, they've relied on systems to give them everything, where we have relied on the adults to give us everything that we needed. And even though they thought they knew everything, they didn't have the blueprint or the map to give us to guide us through that. So we had to get it for ourselves. And one of the things I learned as a millennial is if the authorities don't have it, then you got to create it. And that's one of the things that I've learned as a black person, that we cannot rely on systems to give us what we need. We have to go out there and get it for ourselves. When I didn't have books for school, I go to the library. When I needed to find a specific book that wasn't available in my school, I had to go out and get it. But also, when the computer came and the internet came and Google came, that's when everything changed. So now I have an encyclopedia at home at the tips of my fingers. I didn't have to go to the library to look these things up. And that's one of the things that, as a black person, I've had to learn every time. Obstacles are always put in my way, but I've grown from them, and those obstacles made me stronger and made me a better individual overall. Because when the teachers couldn't get it for me, I got it for myself. I went out and got it for myself. Nobody gave it to me. And that's why it's important to be autodidactic. And then another part of this, which is the most important part of everything in life, is learning to embrace failure. I've had failures my whole life. I've failed exams. I've failed major tests that could have set me back a grade. But I learned to persevere. There was one time when I wanted to create my own website. I lost $1,500 from that website. I lost a domain. I lost everything before it even got off the ground. And I think that's what I've learned throughout this year. I failed my health exam to drive a bus. And even though I tried, I didn't attach my ego to it when I failed. But as long as I tried, I knew that at least I could be happy with that. And out of all of that, and the setbacks and the obstacles, the final thing that was the most important lesson of all time is creativity and creating value. And if it's one thing I've learned from 2025, is now, because of the nature of employment in this country, I have to learn how to be creative now and to tap into my creativity to come up with new ideas to be transformative and learn how to adapt to constantly changing situations. But also, companies now, most companies now do not want employees anymore. They want people that create value. They want people that create new things, being inventive, being creative is the biggest leverage you could ever have in this decade because technology is disrupting the way we see work or the way we perceive work. And one of the things that is the most important thing for me as an employee is having a space to be creative with my work. And most companies do not like that. Some companies don't like that. Some companies do value that. But the most important thing that I have learned is that you have to create value no matter where you go, where you are. You have to create value because if you don't create anything, then you're not going to have anything and you're going to have to ask for it from somebody else. And that's one of the things and one of the primary reasons why I always wanted to start my own business, to have my own platform to speak about these issues because nobody else is talking about these issues and nobody else really wants to hear a different perspective. It's one of the primary reasons why I started this channel because I was hearing so many people, but I wasn't getting perspective from any of those things because people nowadays are too afraid to assert their point of view or to assert their different perspective on certain things. And that's why creativity has become the the leverage in this decade. So many things came out of the Great Depression. So many companies came out of the Great Depression. So many things came out of World War II that to this day were disruptors. Technology itself is disrupting us in a different way. In the 20s, 100 years ago, it was radio. By the 50s, it was TV. And then the 60s, it was music. It was cultural creativity and technological creativity that got us here. That everything was about cable and the internet. Now it's streaming that's become the technology change in America and actually throughout the world. Because now, whatever you create is intellectual property. And whatever you create and ideas that you create, you can actually own those ideas through intellectual property and make tons of money off of it. Licensing, all types of shit. And I think being creative now is more important because once you create something, you can have that intellectual property make you money for years. But it's also got to be on your own terms and you also got to have a business around it. So I've had to learn that. I've had to learn about intellectual property, how to set up an LLC, what's the difference between a C corp and an S corp. Those things I'm continuously learning through reading about these things and accessing information so that I could set myself on a path to building my own company. But I also know I need cash injection for that. I also know that I would have to work a regular job in order for that to happen. So that's what I've also been focused on as well. But that was 2025. There have been so many things that have happened in 2025. We lost so many people. We lost Malcolm Jamal Warner. We lost a lot of R&B guys. So many R&B people. Like this year, besides 2016, this has been the year of dead R&B singers, R&B and soul singers this year. This year alone, Isley brother died. One of the Isley brothers died. Then we lost Angie Stone and D'Angelo, which was another gut punch. And then Malcolm Jamal Warner. So just take the breath out of you. So I sincerely hope that 2026 will be a better year. But I believe that 2026 is going to be the the go out and get it year. And what I mean by the go out and get it year, I mean that, there's going to be people out here that's going to be taking a lot of risk to get to that next level. And it's going to take a lot of failure and a lot of setbacks and a lot of obstacles to get to where you want to get to. I'm thinking about maybe going to Atlanta next next year because I want to see what's in Atlanta. I always wanted to go out to Atlanta. I think Atlanta would be a great place to start business next to maybe Washington DC. Like I'm very close to DC, so that's always been a spot where I wanted to start a business. But also, I've looked at Atlanta as being one of those places where, you know what, it's so many people moving to Atlanta. Atlanta is a very, very lucrative place you could start a business. So I'm thinking, that might be the next thing that I might really consider hopping on a plane and going to. I think there's a lot of fucking potential for Atlanta to be a black tech hub. That's another thing that I don't talk about. Um, Atlanta is a great place to start because you got hungry college students over at Clark Atlanta and Spelman and Morehouse, and then you got they got great ideas, and then you also you know especially with DC. What I love about Washington DC is in DC you got Howard, you got George Washington University, you got all these college places, all these hubs of great entrepreneurial minded people that can start businesses. And it's just something about the vibe in Atlanta that's just different. And I was thinking about going out there. But I'm a big admirer of Atlanta because Ted Turner is somebody that I look up to as an example of someone starting a very big media business and contributing a lot to society. And I always wanted to be the type of business person that he was because Ted Turner wasn't just a media legend or media mogul, but he was somebody that used his wealth and his business savviness to make big contributions to the world. And that's the type of businessman I want to be. I was reading about Herman Herman Williams, who was a big construction mogul in Atlanta. And then you have a man by the name of Alonzo Herndon who started the Atlanta Life Insurance Company in 1901. Was a barber, was a man that owned many barbershops in Atlanta, cut white folks' hair. And then he took all that money and started the first black insurance company in Atlanta on Peachtree Street. And that led to a lot of black business people going to Atlanta and moving to Atlanta. And that's how we got Sweet Auburn, where there were just black business moguls everywhere. And those stories that I read about, I was like, you know what? Atlanta still has it. And Atlanta's been having it as a black business capital for hundreds of years. And I just think about it. And then I think I read about the Cotton Exposition of 1895, where Booker T. Washington said we could be as separate as the five fingers, but one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. This is how black businesses got started. This is how Atlanta became the black mecca that we know now. So it's my mission, hopefully, I pray that next year I can get on a plane and go to Atlanta and see what Atlanta has to offer. And if they have a lot to offer, I'm out. I'm out of Baltimore for good because that's the place that I want to be. And my main focus is to be in international hubs. I mean, I know Atlanta is not New York City. That will always be the business capital of the world. But Atlanta is the black business capital of the world, too. And I would at least like to experience it before I go anywhere else. I hope that next year something opens up for me. I hope that, I'm going to continue to manifest these things, these ideas that I have, because no one else is doing them. No one else is trying to take the risk. I was also thinking about maybe starting a Black History channel. You know, I thought about that. That's going to be for another video. I'm going to talk about that more in depth. But I really think it's time for Black Americans to have their own Black History channel so that we can educate our children on their history and their heritage. And I think it's time for that. I mean, I grew up with the History Channel for years and I never saw myself, my heritage being put on that channel. And I think it's time that we have our own TV network or OTT app that teaches African American history to the youth and to the children, because we're seeing a lot of this kind of get away from us. Black history is starting to get away from us in a worse way. But I'm going to talk about that in another video. I'm going to address that in another video. But I thank y'all for listening. And I thank y'all for continuing to tune in to Media Talks TV. I'm going to be taking this channel in a vastly different direction. I'm going to be doing more lives. I'm going to be doing more videos that really focus on a myriad of topics and not just, I want to engage. What I want to do on this channel is I want to engage with my audience. I want to talk to people. I want to really, really talk to you guys. I want to know my subscribers face to face. So if you ever get a chance, um, we're gonna have some lives, and I want y'all to, tap in. Talk to me directly. I want to, engage with my audience. I mean, I ain't got that many subscribers yet, but I'm trying to be consistent and trying to get more people on this channel to engage with me and not just watch my videos, but really, you know, we have a conversation, talk about different things in the media, but also talk about what's going on in our community. Because I feel like we're not engaging enough in our community when we talk about certain issues. We automatically getting shut down. And social media has been this place where people get shut down for having a differing opinion. But I'm starting this platform because I want people to talk about serious issues. I want us to bring up real topics, taboo subjects that we don't really talk about, you know. And I'm going to do my best to try and be as vulnerable as I can with you and talk about those issues and what's going on in my mind, because I'm trying to build a business around this whole thing. But I thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all guys have a happy new year. And I'm looking forward to really building up this channel even more in 2026. So happy New Year's. And thanks for tuning in to Media Talks TV. I'm Tony J. And I'm out. Be sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe for more content. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you later.